and he actually got on one of those rafts from Turkey, went to Greece, and then traveled to Germany, interviewed people at the camps where the Syrian refugees are being held. And in spite of what the president says, he says 80% of them are men between the ages of 18 and 50. The president keeps talking about orphans as he insists that we've got to take in these Syrian refugees. Is he being honest with the American people?
Well, Sean, I've been bringing it up for weeks. I looked at the migration, and I'm saying, you know, there doesn't seem to be very many women or children in that. They actually look like mostly young, very strong men. And I'm saying, what's going on? This could be the ultimate Trojan horse. But I'm saying, what's going on? Why are there so many men and so many young, strong men? And people are starting to see that now. I think I'm the first to have brought it up, but people are starting to see that now. In any event, we can't do this. We just can't do it. We have so many problems in our country, and I like the idea of building a safe zone in Syria and contributing and working with other countries and the Gulf states who have to put up a lot of money. They have so much money and they're not spending it. But I think that's great. But you know what, from a humanitarian standpoint, but we can't take these people. We don't know who they are. They're totally undocumented. Nobody knows where they came from. They don't have any paperwork at all. And we just can't be doing it.
You know, so what you're saying, you're willing to offer humanitarian assistance. You're willing to create a safe zone with a coalition. You're willing to provide food and water and medical supplies and cots and blankets and what the people need. Our intelligence officials are warning it's almost impossible to ascertain whether or not ISIS will infiltrate the refugee population like they did in France. James Clapper, the head of intelligence, our FBI director, our assistant FBI director, the House chairman of the Homeland Security Committee are all saying that we can't possibly know if they'll infiltrate. So must you not conclude that the president is willing to gamble with the lives of Americans?
Look, we have a president, frankly, that doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue. I've been watching law enforcement officials, many of them, saying there's no way we can tell. There's absolutely no method. There's nothing we can do to really tell and to really be sure. And it only takes one or two people. You see the destruction that they can cause and the problems. And then they say, well, we're taking some youth. Well, the two Boston bombers, you know, they came in who did such a horrible thing with the Boston Marathon. They came in, one was a very young guy and the other was a young guy, but they were very young people when they came in and they became radicalized and horrible, and you saw what happened there. So it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter to me. We cannot do this. We should help them in terms of their land. We should help them build a safe zone. We should do whatever we can, get everybody involved, build a big, beautiful safe zone, and then hopefully someday people can go back to, you know, where they want to be probably, which is where they grew up when this whole mess ends. But it's a very, very dangerous thing for our country to be taking these people.
Listen, the State Department issues this generic security threat and warning to Americans. On the same day, Turkey, as you know, earlier today, a Russian warplane was shot down near the Syrian border. They say they did not violate Turkey's airspace. And as a result of that, the New York Times pointed out one of the pilots that parachuted out was shot. And President Obama's comments were, well, Turkey has a right to defend its airspace, and he calls for a de-escalation. I'm not sure he's understanding what actually happened here.
I don't think he understands anything. I mean, he won't even say where the problem is. He won't talk about it. He won't mention anything that's slightly controversial having to do with Muslim. And I know many Muslims. They're wonderful people. But we have a lot of problems. And the problems, as I always say it, they don't come from Sweden. This is a problem that's unique, and it's a very deep-seated problem. And we have to get to the bottom of it. But we can't be taking the people in. We can't be taking the Syrian refugees in. And we have to be very smart. We're not being smart right now. Now you're seeing planes being shot down. I mean, what are we going to end up with, World War III here because we have a president that doesn't know what he's doing?
Let me go to this whole controversy over the fact that you talked about people in New Jersey, that there were reports that, in fact, there was celebrations after 9/11. Now, if we go to the Washington Post, and this was just 7 days after 9/11 on the 18th, The Washington Post says in Jersey City, within 2 hours of two jetliners plowing into the World Trade Center, law enforcement authorities detained and questioned a number of people who were allegedly seen celebrating the attacks and holding tailgate-style parties on rooftops while they watched the devastation from the other side of the river. By the way, the Associated Press at the same time also wrote about rumors of rooftop celebrations. The Washington Post, I looked, I don't see one example where they made a correction in 15 years or 14 years. The Star-Ledger...
They did no correction, absolutely.
And the Star-Ledger also reported it. But the way this was reported is that you made this up whole cloth. You did not make it up whole cloth.
No, I didn't make it up. No. It happened. It was on. I saw it. It was all over the place. It was on the Internet. And by the way, Sean, I have received, you had that Washington Post article, which was 6 or 7 days later. I have received hundreds of phone calls in my office from people saying they saw it. They were over there. People that live in New Jersey, they saw it. There was a celebration that they were so happy when the World Trade Center was coming down that they were celebrating. And I've had hundreds of phone calls. And I've had many, many tweets on @RealDonaldTrump, but I've had many, many tweets and people saying that they saw it, that I was right.
Yeah.
And I am right. I mean, I'm 100% right. Look, I'm only saying it because we have to be vigilant. I'm not saying it for any reason. I don't want to stir anything up. But you have some people living here where we have some very, very serious problems. We have to be very careful. We have to be very vigilant.
And that brings up the question, your comments earlier this week about waterboarding. Now, I had interviewed Jose Rodriguez. He was involved in this, and he repeated to me numerous times, and we only waterboarded 3 people. A lot of people don't know that. Only 3. But in the case of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, it led to the intel, which led to the courier, which led to bin Laden. So, according to him, I asked him, would we have gotten bin Laden without the waterboarding? And he said, absolutely, we would not have. Explain why you think that that is a necessary tool that we need to be using.
Well, first of all, I think it works. I have no doubt that it works. And maybe not in all cases, and maybe they'll give false information sometimes, but I have no doubt that it works. But the fact is that they're chopping off heads. They're drowning people in cages. They're keeping the cage underwater for a half hour and then pulling it up with many people in there. They're doing acts that nobody has ever seen before or even heard of before. And we're worried about waterboarding. How stupid can we be? And it does work, the waterboarding.
We lost 3,000 people.
Also,
we lost 3,000 people because of radical Islamists. Let me play for you Congressman Keith Ellison. I think he's the first Muslim American congressman, and if I remember correctly, he took the oath on the Quran. And he made a comment that your rhetoric could cause assaults and murders. And I want to give you a chance to respond to him directly. Listen to what he said.
All right.
He's whipping up hatred to scapegoat a minority religious group, which has some very dangerous historic precedents, as you might agree. I mean, it's the kind of behavior that it's classic demagoguery. And, you know, he's going to get somebody hurt. The people who are mentally unstable or motivated by hate come out of the woodwork, and you see desecrations of buildings that are associated with that group. You see assaults. You see murders.
Mr. Trump, I've never heard you talk about Muslims in general. I've heard you talk about radical Islamists. He is saying that is not the case. What's your answer to him?
Well, again, we have a president that refuses to even use the term radical Islamic terrorism or anything having to do with that. And unless he's going to use the term, unless he's going to understand what's going on, we're never going to solve the problem. We have to solve the problem. As far as what he said, more people are getting hurt by being weak. We can be weak, and we can close our eyes to the problems in this country. And we do that too often anyway. But we can close our eyes, put blindfolders on, and more people are going to get hurt by doing that, Sean. You're going to have so many people hurt, and I'm talking about massive. We cannot continue to be a weak country that's poorly led and just wants to be politically correct about everything. You have to say what it is. You have to use the terms and the terminology. You're never going to solve the problem. You're never going to solve the problem with this president anyway. I've been telling you on your show for 3 years now, you have to attack the oil. You have to take over the oil. You have to attack the oil. They were laughing, oh, how crazy. They were going to generals, and the generals were told what to say, and they were saying, now all of a sudden, 3-4 days ago after Paris, they start attacking the oil, doing exactly what I said. In fact, I said you should do much more. You should keep it.
They are the richest terrorist organization, and they have more land mass than any other terror group before. All right, I look at these numbers. I have a stack of articles. I know you can't see them where you are, Mr. Trump. Today's USA Today. It quotes Karl Rove. I don't agree with his policies. He's not a conservative. He's only been a Republican for just a short period of time out of convenience. John Kasich is now running ads. We'll call it like the golden oldies of Donald Trump, things that he thinks you said that are controversial. You've got a group that has declared war on you, an establishment group with Liz Mayer and Rick Wilson, and they're planning on spending tons of money. But the bottom line is clearly you have now established yourself as the guy to beat. Now they're going to be spending the money. Now they've declared pretty much war against you, and the ads are coming. What is your answer to the battle that they have started?
Well, this is really a violation of the pledge. You know, the pledge was taken by me in all good faith, and this is a little bit of a violation, or a big part of a violation. As far as, you know, like a guy like Kasich, he's so far down in the polls, he's embarrassed. He's the governor of Ohio. I'm beating him in Ohio soundly in the polls, and I'm killing him. I think he's down to 2 now. I mean, I think he'll probably have to get out of the race. So this is just desperation for him. He probably doesn't want to do it, but he's got no choice. Karl Rove is a loser. I mean, Karl Rove has been hitting me for years now, and you know, he still thinks Mitt Romney won the election. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars on elections and didn't win one of them. And then last time, in order to get a couple of victories, he went to sure things. I think over the last year and a half, he went to sure elections because he had to get some victories under his belt with the money that he rips off from people. So Karl Rove has been a loser for a long time. The most important poll is also in the Fox poll, and you see it, that I'm beating Hillary Clinton very soundly.
You're beating Hillary Clinton in a head-to-head matchup. That's right.
Right.
So my question to you, though, is obviously the establishment's going to spend millions and millions now. I mean, you see the articles. I assume you're reading them. And I assume that there's going to be some response from you. What is it? And are you considering going third party? I mean, because that came up yesterday.
Let me put it this way. Look, you know, I love the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat also, and he went, you know, Republican and pretty conservative Republican. He was actually somewhat of a liberal Democrat, and he changed. And I was a Democrat at one point, and I became a Republican. I'm really following a very similar path, actually, and we have a lot of things in common, I can tell you that. But, you know, it wasn't the deal that I made. I made a deal, I made a pledge, and they're not treating me right when they do that. And all they do is, you know, they're trying to save themselves. They look very bad. They look very foolish. Their people, all the people that you mentioned, look very, very foolish, and they're trying to save something out of it. But it's not a good thing. And it wasn't the deal I made. I have to be honest with you. It wasn't the deal I made with the RNC and Reince and the group. That wasn't what I did. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm very happy where I am. I'm leading by tremendous margins. And, you know, we just had the great Iowa poll. In New Hampshire, we're leading by tremendous. South Carolina, which you didn't mention, we're leading by a tremendous amount. And hopefully we can carry that on to the end, and I'll win the election. But, you know, I love the Republicans. I'm a conservative guy, and we'll see what happens.
All right. You made the deal with Reince. Are you happy with Reince previous? Are you happy with the RNC? Karl Rove is not a part of that. These other groups, establishment groups, money groups, are not a part of that. So are you going to hold Reince and the RNC responsible and threaten to go third party, even though he's not involved?
Well, I'm just going to look at it. He's a nice person. He's a nice man. We get along great. But, you know, I mean, there should be some semblance of order within the party. They've lost so many elections. Romney should have won the last election. Some bad things happened there, okay? Some really bad things. And he obviously didn't finish very well in the last month. I don't know what happened to him, but he certainly didn't finish very strong. That wouldn't happen with me. Believe me, we will win. That's why I'm doing it. I mean, I backed John McCain. And because of Karl Rove and what happened in that last, you know, few months with Bush, I mean, in all fairness, I don't blame McCain. He couldn't have won that election. What happened at the last few months of the Bush term, I mean, it was a disaster. Now, Romney should have won. That should have been won.
Right,
and I think Karl Rove still thinks that Romney won. You know, Karl Rove is going around saying, I think Romney won. I think Romney won. It took him like 3 days to realize that Romney didn't win. That should have been an election that was won, and it wasn't. I don't want to have that happen again. We have great potential in our country. Our country has tremendous potential. I always say the American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. I'm not going to rely on anybody anymore. I mean, I backed both of them. And again, I don't blame McCain. That was an election that really would have been very hard to win because of what happened in the final months of the Bush administration. But I do blame Romney. He should have won that election. Something happened. He went away. He wasn't doing what he should have been doing. While Obama, say what you want, he was going on talk shows. He was on Jay Leno and Letterman. He was all over the place. Romney was like lost. And I don't want to have that happen again.
Well, I don't think the country can afford to lose again. I'm going to play you two ads.
They cannot afford it.
I agree. We can't afford it with foreign policy and the economy's in shambles. Last question. I'm going to play you two ads. The DNC attacking Republicans. They say you're grouping all Muslims together, but they even quote you in the ad as saying we have a problem with radical Muslims. They tend to bypass that, and I want to play your ad against Hillary laughing about Benghazi. Let's play them both.
Including FBI officials. Look.
Well, I don't know why that's funny.
We are at war with radical Islam.
Radical Islamic terrorism.
You do have a problem with radical Muslims.
Radical Islamic jihadists.
Radical Islamic terrorism.
How far in are you going to go in an ad war if millions and millions are being spent on you, against you?
Well, look, I built a great company. The company is amazing. It's, it's peanuts we're talking about. I'm going to spend whatever I have to spend. I'm going to spend what I need to spend. And, part of the reason that I'm doing so well is I have some of the great assets of the world. I have tremendous cash flows. When I filed my statements, everybody was amazed at the size of what I've been able to build. And that, frankly, is the reason I tell you that is that's the kind of thinking that our country needs, Sean. We need that kind of thinking. We owe now, if you look, $19 trillion. And we have nothing but problems. Obamacare is a disaster. It's got to be repealed and replaced. Our vets aren't taken care of. Our military isn't taken care of. We're falling way behind. We're the most unprepared now in the military than we've ever been in the history of our nation. Think of that. Said by General Orellana. That was by him. That wasn't by me. I watched him on one of the shows. I think it was on Fox, actually, believe it or not. And, we are in bad shape. And we can take this next election, but we have to be smart, and we do have to be unified. I'm a unifier, believe it or not. A lot of people would say I'm not. I'm a great unifier. I get along with people. And you watch what happens. We'll unify. But we have to unify as a party, because if we don't, I will tell you, we're going to have another loss. And you don't want to lose. You can't have another 4 years of a Hillary Clinton. That would be catastrophic. I will say this. If I get the nomination, I will beat Hillary Clinton.
All right, Mr. Trump, always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Coming up as we approach the holiday weekend, security at U.S. airports intensify. Catherine Herridge next with a full report. And later.